right, Spencer Graham, welcome to the BlockHash podcast live. What's up? How you doing today?
I am doing real well. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah,
How
it's a
are you
pleasure
doing?
to have you on. Where are you from? Where are you based?
I am based out of Chicago for the last 10 or 11 years. Yeah.
How do you like Chicago? I know we kind of talked about it, but for the audience, what do you
Yeah.
think? What's your opinion?
I think it's great. The winters, as we discussed, and as probably many people know, are can be pretty brutal, but everything else is pretty great. There's a lot of fun things to do. It's not exactly like the most the biggest hub for tech or crypto, but there's a small passionate community here. One of the things I do is help run the Chicago Ethereum meetup,
Hmm.
and so it's really fun. We did our first in person meetup the other week in quite some time, so that was really great to see everybody and talk about crypto and Ethereum.
Yeah, when is that hosted? Is that like an annual thing, or do you just do it
Um,
whenever?
we we try to do it every month. We haven't yet found we haven't settled on a specific cadence like some
Hmm.
other meetups, but it's approximately once a month, pending schedules and speaking availability and stuff like that.
Yeah, what's the agenda usually like? You just talk about Ethereum and what's going on in the space, or do you guys have like a speaker lineup or?
Yeah, pretty much. Usually, what we do is we bring in a speaker. Maybe it's a member of the community. Maybe it's somebody who is somewhere around Chicago. We've been doing more remote stuff recently, obviously, and then usually we just have a kind of happy hour afterwards, sort of thing, and everybody talk about whatever's on their minds.
Nice, nice. I'll have to check that out at some point if I ever make it to Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Just don't do it in the wintertime. It's too brutal.
Well, we will do it in the wintertime, but we will also do it in the not wintertime. So there should be plenty of opportunities for you to come join us.
Oh, thank goodness, thank goodness. Yeah. Anyways, tell me a little bit more about yourself and your background. Like, how did you get into the space and into crypto, and what sparked your curiosity? Why did you want to be in this industry?
Yeah, it's sort of a little bit of a meandering path, but I started getting into crypto in around 2016, and then a little bit more heavily in 2017. And I had kind of been tracking Ethereum and Bitcoin for some time. But what really like aggressively threw me down the rabbit hole was I just started a job um, in healthcare, a big healthcare corporation, and it became so obvious how many how many problems in healthcare all stem from this core idea that patients don't own their own data, and that all that health data is kind of locked up in different silos, and that creates all these different weird perverse incentives and business models that just don't really work well for healthcare. At least that's the way it works here in the US. I'm sure
Hmm.
other people from other countries may have different experiences, but it just was really striking. And as I started learning about that and kind of simultaneously learning about Ethereum and smart contracts and decentralized storage and composability, the light switch just kind of went off, and I thought, wow, this is um, really our best hope to fix healthcare. And kind of from there, I started trying to learn all that I could. I went down a really big, long, like privacy technology and like encryption technology rabbit hole, and then it sort of opened up from there into everything that is Ethereum. Um, and I kind of just couldn't really take my eyes off it, and all of my sort of free intellectual time was spent on crypto and especially Ethereum stuff. Um, and then it that sort of that kind of continued until early 2020. I ended up going to East Denver, and I had this idea and created we did a hack with a couple of my teammates, and that was something called Save Die. And from there, I sort of kept working on Save Die with Ksenia and Doug. Then I just sort of started to meet a bunch of different people. Started contributing to ClearFund, which is like an on-chain quadratic funding protocol. And then from there, met a couple of people in Raid Guild, which is sort of which is a DAO that is basically acts as a Web3 dev shop. And we do everything as a DAO, almost basically like just like a co-op model kind of thing. And then from there, I got pulled into a few other things. one of which is DAOhaus, and that's kind of, long story short, that's where I spend a lot of my time today, as in addition to a lot of the other things I talked about. So I'm sort of all over the place, but I have a home within kind of the Meta Cartel family of DAOs and communities, Raid Guild and especially DAOhaus.
Yeah, it sounds like you've kind of gotten around a little bit in the space and done quite a few things. Is it DAOs that like interest you the most? Is that why you spend so much time on it?
Um, I think so. It's hard to say there's one particular thing that
Hmm.
interests me the most, because one of the coolest things about crypto is that it's like it's the confluence of everything. And that's kind of where I like to sort of sit. I'm a product manager by background and training. So I sort of have like skills across a wide skills and interests across a wide swath of areas. So like sitting at the nexus of everything is what I really like to do. And maybe that is why I like DAO so much, because um, people talk about the DAO space, and it's starting to get like, when somebody says that, it's starting to basically be like talking about the company space or like the nonprofit space. That's
Hmm.
almost so big and so generic as to not mean anything. But it also means that DAOs touch everything. There's DAOs for every kind of organization that you can imagine, or at least I think there will be. So that's maybe one of the reasons why I am drawn to DAOs.
Yeah, do you see it as like this like universal tool that a lot of different enterprises will be able to use in the future? On top of blockchain. And I know there's so many things you can do with blockchain, obviously, but I know DAOs, they can plug into, just about every industry.
Yeah, 100%. DAOs, at least the way I see them, and I think a lot of the people that I work with, especially in DAOhaus, see DAOs as just fundamentally a human coordination technology and a human coordination infrastructure. And what is all of life other than human coordination? So we really see DAOs, and I certainly see DAOs as kind of bleeding into everything that humans do. I'm sure there's also going to be DAO structures that are uh, like more in the AI world, where like the instead of human members of DAOs, you start to get AI members of DAOs. That's a super fascinating area that
Yeah, that
it
sounds
could probably be a
interesting.
whole podcast on its own. But
So, yeah,
um,
could you have a DAO with Alexa and Siri and what are the other ones?
I mean,
Cortana and Bigsby, like all
yeah,
like on a committee for a DAO?
yeah, you basically, I mean, Bitcoin is almost that way. Like if imagine if and they may, like, for all we know, they may already be running their own nodes and mining rigs like
Hmm.
Siri or whatever AI whatever's. And like so that's going to work. People talk about Bitcoin being the first DAO, and I think that's almost so obvious as to be, or so true as to be almost obvious at this point. Um, for me, though, the way I like to think about Bitcoin as a DAO is as a really great and obviously the first example of a protocol DAO, of a DAO uh, that is oriented primarily about preserving itself, preserving the DAO or the protocol, and the humans or whatever other actors are part of it are really kind of not important. Um, they're important because they respond to incentives and do things that the DAO or the protocol wants them to do. But sort of the goal of Bitcoin is to, and I think Bitcoin has achieved this, is to be a protocol whereby if the if the founder up and leaves, then it's still going to keep running, and if anybody gets hit by a bus, it's still going to keep going. And those kind of DAOs are almost like the goal is to abstract away the humans,
Hmm.
which has a role in the world, and I think is really powerful and interesting. Uh, but that's just one type of DAO. And I think where I have started to become more interested, and I think where DAOhaus is going, is a little bit more towards DAOs that support the humans that make them up, and kind of empower those humans to do things collectively and live shared values and accomplish shared goals together. So not abstracting away the humans, but lifting up the humans and empowering them.
Yeah, let's talk about DAOhaus for a minute. Like, is that like the primary goal to, form this like collaboration with people through DAOhaus, or like, or is there something more specific in terms of like a mission or a goal?
Yeah, we've been riffing for some time on what we should, like, do we have a mission that we can kind of get down into one sentence? And I think where we've landed recently is unlocking the next tier of community collaboration. Humans are, you could also throw the word coordination in there instead of collaboration potentially. It's very similar concepts. Mm-hmm. Humans are most productive and happiest and kind of at their best when they're part of communities. And so we really want to focus on creating and facilitating the collection of communities into really into groups and organizations that can help the individuals within those communities live their best lives and do their best work.
Got it. Do you have any examples or use cases of that currently?
Yeah, this is a little bit selfish of me, but I think Raid Guild is a really strong example of that, and DAOhaus itself is I shouldn't even say almost, is a really strong example of that. And the reason I say it's selfish of me is because about a year ago, I kind of skipped this part in my answer to the first question. About a year ago, I was able to quit that corporate healthcare job because I had started contributing to Raid Guild and to DAOhaus just on the side, but I was able to ramp up really quickly into full-time work, essentially. And now the way that I structure my life is really the way that I want, and I can work with really great people and feel part of a community and feel accepted as part of a group, both within Raid Guild and DAOhaus and other communities. But they're almost like I see them as like blurring the line between work and play, or like work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Within those communities, within those DAOs, I'm able to do really, really meaningful and what I think of as very important work, but then also hang out with and talk to really interesting people about the stuff that I care about.
Yeah, so is it this one right here, Raid Guild, a decentralized collective of mercenaries ready to slay your Web3 product demons?
That's right. Yeah, we are heavy on the memes, sort of a Dungeons and Dragons inspired aesthetic. But we're all about going to slay those dragons together. Got
it. Oh, you got one, Yap DAO too. That's kind of cool. Communicate their message on a global scale. Nice. Yeah, I also saw you guys had a token. You have a marketplace. Like, what's up with this stuff?
Yeah, so the token is kind of how we bring together our broader community and broader ecosystem to share in the governance over DAOhaus itself, as well as over the token itself and the treasury and how we spend resources. So from the very beginning, DAOhaus has been dogfooding its own vision. So we've been a DAO from the start. Started as, I think, maybe 10 or 15 people, and we started working together, and we were able to collect some capital together and work as what you could think of as a mini company, or as a startup company, but structured as a DAO, where we all shared in ownership and control over the funds that we have, over decisions that we make. And that has continued. The scale has gotten much larger. So we launched a token that allowed us to sort of expand the control and the influence over decisions that we as a group make to many other people, including many of the DAOs that use the DAOhaus platform. So UberHaus is sort of the governing body of DAOhaus, of the DAOhaus ecosystem. And UberHaus is made up of, I don't remember the number, maybe 30 to 50 different DAOs. So it's, I think, one of the first DAOs that the only members are other DAOs. So all of those DAOs have each selected a delegate from within their own membership, and they've staked, or each DAO has tributed 500 house tokens, which is our token. And by tributing those tokens, they get membership in our DAO. And then that allows them, or that basically grants them shares in the DAO, which involves ownership over the DAO itself and control over how that DAO spends resources like the house token to build out new features or to to incentivize other behaviors within the community. One of those DAOs is what we call House DAO, or alternatively the WarCamp DAO, and that is made up of the original contributors to DAOhaus, as well as a whole number of other people who have joined on since. So you can kind of think of about that as the core developer or the core contributor DAO. And so that DAO is just one of many DAOs that establish the direction of DAOhaus.
What's the most common use for a DAO that you see people when they want to set one up? Is it just for like running an organization or funding or for treasury purposes, or like what's like most common that you see?
Most common by number of DAOs is people just experimenting. We see a lot of people coming onto the DAOhaus platform and summoning a DAO with a handful of their friends and sort of just seeing what happens. Of the DAOs that sort of stick and become something, there's a handful of different use cases. The original flavor was a grants DAO. So this is the original Moloch DAO or Metacartel DAO, are two of the probably biggest and best examples, where a bunch of people come together. They have this shared interest in advancing a certain cause or a certain ecosystem, and they pool their money together, and then collectively they decide who to give that money to as grants to advance that cause.
Okay. Like, does it have to be an individual, or could it be like an entity?
Joining?
Yeah, joining.
No, it could absolutely be an entity. So UberHaus is a great example of other DAOs being a member of that DAO. There are also a number of different members of the Metacartel DAO that are organizations or companies or other groups. Some of those are DAOs or are groups that Metacartel has given a grant to, that have then gone on to do something really great and then have come back and been able to tribute some of their own funds back into the DAO and sort of pay it forward and become a member.
Got it. Okay, and then what's this Haas marketplace that's coming soon, that's trademarked? The soon is trademarked.
So there's a couple different marketplaces that we're working on. One, we have an early version that is live today, and people can sign up to join. That's what we call the services marketplace. So I talked earlier about Raid Guild as basically a Web3 dev shop that's structured as a DAO. You saw YapDAO on the screen there. Those are two examples of what we call services DAOs. So the analog to a company would be a dev shop or a PR firm or any company that is providing services to individuals or other companies. So not creating a product or selling a thing or a commodity, but rather selling a service. So any organization that has clients, that is what a services DAO could be, or what could be a services DAO. So what we realized or recognized is that a lot of so there are a lot of grants DAOs like we talked about, but then there are also a handful of pretty successful services DAOs that are using DAOhaus. So we sort of were realizing that there's a really interesting opportunity for those services DAOs to start to provide services to each other, or provide services to all the other DAOs that are on the DAOhaus platform and in the DAOhaus economy, or in the DAO economy. So to facilitate that, we're working on this services marketplace where we're making it easier for DAOs to hire other DAOs, or for services DAOs to sell their services via our platform, via that marketplace to others who come to check it out. And one of the great things about Ethereum is it makes the payment rails really fast and easy, and we can create kind of custom logic that allows us to split the payments across different places and put them in different DAOs or different vaults, depending on who's selling the services. Yeah, so that's the services marketplace.
What kind of services do these services DAOs offer generally, or like what are some of them?
So we talked about the like Web3 developer kind of services. So building an app, writing smart contracts, writing subgraphs, that sort of thing. YapDAO provides PR services. So we actually got in touch with you via the services that DAO provides to us. Another one is called Splainer DAO. So they create documentation and kind of explainer videos for other protocols and other products or companies or DAOs. And we kind of expect to see a ton of different people experimenting with what they can do by starting a service DAO rather than by starting a traditional consulting firm, or maybe it's just a small group of friends who want to provide some legal services or something like that. LexDAO is another example of what we would call a services DAO. So a group of legal engineers and lawyers who are Web3, very familiar with Web3.
Got it. Here's another question, and this is more like at a higher level, looking down. What do you see, or where do you see, I guess, DAOs going in the future? Like, where do you see their place in society? If it becomes as big as we all think it will be through blockchain, do you think it'll have a massive impact, or do you think it'll have an impact on specific niche industries, or what do you think? What's your opinion?
I think it'll have a massive impact. It remains to be seen how long that will take. I think I expect the impact to be primarily at first in newer industries. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a reason that crypto people like to provide services or do things for other crypto people. Sort of this almost insular sort of economy. But as new industries or new niches start to emerge, just as humanity moves through time, I expect them to be aware of DAOs and to start to see the benefits of how much easier it is to start a DAO and how much more impactful it can be to be working in a DAO rather than in a kind of top-down hierarchical company. So I see new companies or new organizations that would have started as companies or would have started as legally defined nonprofits to instead start as DAOs. And I expect just groups of friends or social clubs to start to create or to use DAOs to organize and coordinate and do fun things with each other. And then I see in the longer run that seeping into bigger enterprises, possibly through the path of as these big DeFi token-driven DAOs start to gain even more prominence, possibly through that route as well.
Yeah, do you think company formation, like LLCs and S corps and C corps and stuff like that, could be formed as DAOs instead of the traditional route of going through your state to set up a company?
Yeah, I really hope so. I think Wyoming has been at the forefront of this in the United States. Mm-hmm. I will admit to not fully understanding the degree to which their DAO, their DAO entity situation is different than just a regular Delaware LLC or something like that. Mm-hmm. What I can say is, there are a bunch of DAOs on DAOhaus that do have an LLC as a legal wrapper, and what that does is just points to the DAO smart contract and says whoever is a member of this DAO is a member of the LLC. And when that changes, then the membership changes. And this address owns or controls the DAO's or the LLC's funds. And it's kind of as simple as that. I would love for governments to recognize those entities without having to create an LLC at all. I don't know. That may be quite far off, but that would be really great.
I've given that a lot of thought before. It's kind of interesting to think about because, if you have a DAO, if you have a smart contract on blockchain, it's not necessarily in a specific jurisdiction. And I think it kind of avoids certain purview. And it's kind of hard to say, if you set up an LLC in Wyoming or you set one up in Nevada, the rules are very different depending on the state, and even in the country too. Blockchain's not relegated to one state or to one country or to one city. So I think there's some issues there that probably have to tie a traditional corporation or LLC to to a DAO. And there's got to probably be some kind of connection there to help give a little bit more guidance. I think that's what's probably slowing it down as well.
Yeah, I I think there's a lot of work to do on that front, both maybe kind of with uh, just educating lawmakers and
Hmm.
regulators about DAOs and what makes them great, but then also just continuing to push on the technology and on the community development stuff and just making it happen regardless of what the current regulatory environment is, and providing a really great example to those regulators about what's possible.
What's that like in Chicago? Are there a lot of people there that are really interested in crypto and blockchain, or do you see a lot of innovation there? People always talk about Miami. They always talk about, Texas now trying to be
Hmm.
a huge crypto hub, and they talk about LA and San Francisco. I don't always hear too much about Chicago, but like, do you see it or feel it there? Or are people like interested?
Um, to be honest, I think at, like a population level, less so than
Hmm.
some of those other places you talked about. But I think that might also just be Chicago as a whole just may just not be as good as talking about that. I
Hmm.
think there's a lot of people recently, especially with Miami and Austin, who have been very interested in painting Miami and Austin as that.
Hmm.
And I have no doubt that it is that, but maybe there are some other locations that are just as vibrant. I will be also pretty candid and say that given the last year and a half of the state of the world, I have become more disconnected from like what's going on in Chicago than, well, maybe I'll say not more disconnected, just more connected everywhere else. So the specific location that I am in has less of an influence over me, and I hear or sort of as a share of what I see in the world is has a lower share um, than probably it had before. So I don't think I can speak too specifically to that, other than that we do have um, a handful of meetups and people that like to talk about this stuff. I don't see a ton of I don't see outwardly as much of the talking about it though as in some other areas.
Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if that'll change in the future. But yeah, it's so many cities in the U.S. are really jumping on and trying to become a hub for crypto. I mean, you hear another mayor talk about it like every single month.
Yeah, our mayor has not.
Well, we'll see. We'll find out.
We will.
Anyways, one more question before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure.
What's your guys' like roadmap look like, or what do you guys have on the horizon that's coming up? Going into the end of the year, going into next year in 2022, that you want people to be aware of, or to keep an eye on? Do you have important updates, or do you have partnerships or new use cases with DAOs, or anything cool you want people to know about?
Yeah, there's so many things. I think what I'll try to boil it down to. I'll try to provide like a more of a like a high level framework, I guess,
Hmm.
and that's kind of based on these two different types of DAOs that I think maybe been hinting at a little bit. Like one is this big, wide, permissionless protocol DAO kind of thing. So a lot of the big token DeFi DAOs are structured that way. Um, and then there's this other sort of more community centric DAO. Often they start smaller, and maybe they're permissioned, and that's really where DAOhaus is focused now. And we really do believe in the value of those types of DAOs. We think there's going to be more of those DAOs than any other types of DAOs. But at the same time, just like any company, um, the company doesn't look the same when it first starts as when it's 10 years in or when it's much more mature. It grows and it changes and it morphs. And DAOs are going to be just the same, if not even more flexible and agile. And what we're trying to do is create the types of tools that allow DAOs to start a certain way and then kind of migrate or morph or have their infrastructure grow with them. So we're working on I think one of the first things that we're doing in that area is creating more ways for DAOs to interact with other protocols and other smart contracts and other DAOs. We have a type of smart contract that we allow DAOs to use in conjunction with their main DAO, which we call a minion. And we're working on a few different types of minions that allow DAOs to do lots of different things. So it allows them to be more flexible with the way that they're able to vote on proposals. It allows them to do an earlier execution of actions when if it's an especially important proposal when it comes to speed, or to allow them to interact or collect or sell or do lots of different things with NFTs, which is obviously a big area now. And then we're also contributing to an effort to create. So right now we use the Moloch v2 contract framework. That's what all the DAOs that get deployed on DAOhaus are. We're contributing to a community effort to develop the next version of the Moloch DAO framework, which will be called Moloch v3, or might have a code name BAL, B-A-A-L. And that we're hoping will be able to introduce much more flexibility as well. So allow a DAO to kind of grow from a small permissioned community and sort of morph into a bigger, potentially permissionless, more granular kind of voting community, potentially based off even compound style voting and delegation and that kind of thing. So we're focused on kind of, or in the long run, we're focused on the full spectrum of a DAO's life cycle and all the different types of things that a DAO may want to do, whether that's bring in new members in different types of ways, or invest in or buy or even sell NFTs, whether that's art or all the other things that we think NFTs are going to represent, or and then the other thing that we're working on is how can we help DAOs to facilitate their community development, which is such an important part of what a DAO is.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys got a lot of things coming up for sure. You'll definitely stay busy.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if there's anybody listening who likes what they're hearing or is interested in exploring more or helping out, as mentioned, we are organized and we operate fully as a DAO. So our doors are always open for new contributors to come in and help in whatever way they'd want. And whether that's just a little bit or whether that's on a full-time basis, everything is possible when you're contributing to a DAO.
Yeah, if people want to contribute or get involved, where should they go? Do you guys have a community, a Discord, a Telegram, anything like that?
Yeah, Discord is the best place. So I think we have a unique link to that. I cannot recall, but if there's show notes or anything, I can share that with you. Also, people can go to DAOhaus.club, and there'll be links to our Discord and Twitter and a bunch of other documentation about how to get involved or how to use the DAOhaus platform there.
Okay, perfect. I'll have you send me some links in a little bit. Anyways, this is a good place to wrap up. Spencer, thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share so much about DAOs and DAOhaus. And I really like the Skyrim-esque theme of DAOhaus with all these guilds and clans and talk about mercenaries and stuff like that. I had a blast reading through the website. But yeah, again, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, super fun to talk and thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Stay on for just a second. I'll talk to you, and then otherwise we'll do it again in the future for sure.
Yeah, great. That'd be awesome.